Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone. I've been saving this video for quite a while as I thought it would be good to release right around the National. It comes from the files of Adventures in Card Dealing, and it is the largest card purchase I have ever made dollar-wise. I was partnering with Jeremy Dodson, and we bought out a dealer booth at the National in 2017. As was the case with most of our deals, our agreement was Jeremy pays for the deal, I do all the work selling it. Jeremy recovers his payment first, and then we split all profit on top of that. There are some interesting side stories with this one, including the negotiation, but one of my all-time favorite stories to tell is how we ended up paying him, which was not the smoothest of moves, and I'll just leave it at that for now. We'll share it in detail when we get there, but I have all the financials of this deal, which I'll share in full at the end, and lots of pictures from it, so we'll be sprinkling in those throughout. So again, it was 2017, and the National was in Chicago, where it is held every other year at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. I had been to the National a number of times before at this point, but this was actually Jeremy's first ever time attending. We were on a total hot streak of buying collections. We had just bought a number of very successful deals, recently, a lot of five-figure deals that turned out extremely well. So we were on the hunt for a large purchase. I arrived the day before Jeremy on Thursday and started walking around the show and doing my thing, just sort of chatting with dealers and making a few sort of small, safe buys just to sort of get my feet wet. I came to a booth which was almost entirely a vintage booth with a lot of nice stuff. It wasn't one of the big booths at the show, but it wasn't a cheaper booth either. It was run by a very cool guy named Anthony, who was there with his wife. I was skimming through some of his vintage starter sets, struck up a conversation with him, and at some point it came out that he would be open to selling the entire booth. I told him I might be interested in that, and I would check back with my partner tomorrow. Jeremy arrived the next day on Friday, and I told him about it. We went over to Anthony's booth, and Anthony was extremely easygoing. He led us right into his booth, and we started going through all the cards in detail. Usually in this situation, I would be the one to go through the cards and come up with the max price that we could pay, and then Jeremy would negotiate with that number in mind. But in this case, we wanted to be a little more careful. So what we did was we would each go through a stack of cards or a display case and come up with our own number. We would then switch stacks, do the same thing, and then compare notes to see if we had come up with about the same price. This took a few hours, and we were, for the most part, basically very close with our numbers. Maybe a few times we were a little off, so in those cases we would go back and discuss that specific stack, but overall we were basically on the same page. Something very cool that Anthony did for us is while we were going through the cards, he actually basically closed his booth. Not exactly. He had some dollar boxes and $5 boxes and $10 boxes, some sort of cheaper stuff that he still let people come and buy. But he basically closed his display cases. Wouldn't sell any of the higher dollar stuff while we were looking, which was again very cool of him. Something he didn't have to do, but it made our jobs a lot easier in terms of assessing everything. And in theory, it was a sacrifice on his part. If we had ended up not buying the booth, he might have been missing out on some sales. Most of the biggest money cards in the collection were in this picture here. You can see there's a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. It was a BVG 2. There's also a 1957 Mantle and a BVG 8. A 1957 Mays and Aaron in very high grade. Joe Namath rookie, Ernie Banks rookie. Some higher grade Nolan Ryan, Pete Rose, Mike Schmidt rookie, Reggie Jackson rookie, Rod Carew rookie, Yogi Berra, etc., etc., etc. As a Bird Magic rookie in an SGC 7, some nice 80s stuff as well, Ripken, Griffey, Montana, Marino, etc. But there were lots of other display cases as well. Sort of majority, maybe 50s and 60s baseball, but really a mix of all sports and years, and all sorts of stars and Hall of Famers, Mantles, Aarons, Mays, Frank Robinson rookies, Rose, Koufax, Clemente, etc., etc., etc. Some football, with 1948 Leaf, Johnny Unitas, just all sorts of goodies. There was a 1953 Topps near set, all graded, mostly by PSA, but some SGC. It was missing the major stars, but still had some. You can see Yogi Berra and Satchel Paige at the bottom there. There were 12 display cases in all, so a lot to cover. Here are a few more pictures of them. And then there were, a bunch of cheaper boxes, dollar boxes, $5 boxes, $10 boxes, and some vintage starter sets in binders. Like I said, this took us a couple hours to go through everything, and there were a lot of cards that were going to need to be sent in for grading. There weren't any like big money cards that were going to break the bank grading, you know, a 9 or a 10 or something like that. But there were hundreds of cards that were going to, let's say in the $25 to $200 range, that were going to be well worth it to send in. You know, maybe they come back 4s or 5s or 6s or 7s or whatever. But remember, this was 2017 when PSA grading fees were under $10 per card. So like I said, hundreds of cards to send in that were going to be worth it. But this made it very difficult to assess. There's a lot of unknowns and variables that were, you know, tricky to calculate. So Jeremy and I told Anthony we'd be back in an hour. We're going to go discuss it in private. And Anthony was, of course, you know, fine with that. We calculated that after all was said and done, the entire booth would yield between $70,000 and $90,000, meaning that's what we thought we would put into our pocket after all was said and done, all fees accounted for. For that, $50,000 seemed like the top price to pay. More than that would be sort of risky. We agreed we would offer 40 grand and be willing to come up to 50. When we returned to the booth, Anthony told us, hey, I just got to give you guys a heads up. I actually have somebody else interested in buying the booth. And when he first said this, I just assumed it was a negotiating tactic. It's a very standard negotiating tactic. But we actually found out later that it was indeed true. And the other potential buyer was actually a major dealer in the hobby. Jeremy and I couldn't remember exactly who it was. But from memory, Jeremy thinks it was either Greg Morris or 707 Sports Cards, either of which are major dealers and huge eBay sellers, but again, we don't remember exactly for sure who it was. But Jeremy offered the $40,000, and Anthony was very cool about it, but it was very clear that that was not going to be in the ballpark. He countered at 75 and said that's what he was looking for. And you know, we're obviously very far off here at the jump, but a sort of long, healthy negotiation went on, and Jeremy eventually came up to the 50, and Anthony came down to 60, but it was pretty clear that Anthony was not going to take anything less than $60,000. That was going to be, he was fine to just walk away anything below that. So Jeremy and I actually had a very difficult decision to make. I mean, from a purely business standpoint, we should have just passed, and I think we both kind of knew that in the moment. But it was just too exciting. I mean, a 1952 mantle, all sorts of goodies. I mean, how cool would it be to buy out this booth and just be total ballers? So we agreed to pay him $60,000, which again, remember, was $10,000 over the max we figured we should pay. But it was now late in the day on Friday, and we didn't have that much cash on us, so we were going to have to go to the bank the next morning and pay him tomorrow. And Anthony, again, was super cool and chill about all of this. We gave him a little bit of money. I don't remember how much, but it wasn't a lot. And he said we could just take over the booth there, right then and there, and start selling ourselves, and he would come back tomorrow, and we could pay him then, and that's exactly what we did. He even gave us the key to the body bag. What happens at these shows is overnight, dealers zip up everything into a large body bag and lock it and leave it on the tables. That way the setup and close-up is really quick, and they don't have to haul inventory to their hotel each night. Like I said, Anthony gave us the key to the body bag and all the inventory. So late in the day on Friday, we take over the booth and start making a few sales, and Friday night I lock up the booth, and Saturday morning come back and reopen it and start making a few more sales, and all is good. And at some point Jeremy leaves to go to the bank, and neither of us remember exactly what happened, but somehow Jeremy got heavily delayed. We were all supposed to meet back at the booth at 4 p.m. for us to pay Anthony, and Anthony arrived at 4 p.m. with his wife, but like I said, Jeremy, something happened where he just was running really late. Neither of us actually remember what it was that caused him to run late, but it's not actually important. But from 4 p.m. till 6 p.m., Anthony and his wife are just in the booth with me, hanging out, and like I said, they're very cool and chill, but you can tell Anthony's getting a little uncomfortable here, which is certainly understandable. I mean, we owe him a bunch of money, and we're running quite a bit late here at this point. So finally Jeremy does arrive, but it's actually after the show has just been closed, so we can no longer meet at the booth, or as the convention hall is now closed and locked. Jeremy pulls up to the drop-off area at the convention center, which is very crowded at the moment because everyone is leaving the show. We all meet there, but Anthony's car is in the parking garage, which is a good 15-minute walk away, and there's no place to give him the money. Anthony is getting a bit antsy here. He wants to make sure he gets paid, and we are too. We're feeling antsy for his sake. But again, there's just no place to pay him. It's a crowded entrance area, so we all just get in Jeremy's car. Jeremy in the driver's seat, Anthony in the passenger seat, and myself in the back seat, while his wife waits outside the car. And we're just parked here in this crowded entrance area with people walking by and cars driving by. Jeremy says something like, "Should we go somewhere else and do this?" And Anthony responds with a line that still makes me laugh to this day. He says, "Oh, now you want to go for a drive." And he turns back and looks at me as if I have some, metal wire ready to strangle him. It was 100% a joke, and we all laughed about it. But we just decided to do it right there. It made as much sense as anything else. So Jeremy starts counting out the bills on his lap, and Anthony's watching him and confirming, and I'm in the back seat just chilling, making sure nobody's like peeking in the car for too long. And at one point they lost count, like a scene from a bad comedy movie. 31,600, 31,700, 31. Oh, where was I? Oh, I had to start over. I mean, one of these sort of things. But eventually it all got done. We counted out the money. Anthony confirmed. We paid him, and everything was good. Anthony got out of the car, and his wife said, is this how deals like this are usually done? And we were all like, no, this is about as unprofessional as it can get. But in the end, everyone was happy. We actually even stayed in touch with Anthony for a while, and I saw him the next year at the 2018 National. Got to catch up a bit. That was kind of cool. But so that's how the payment went. But on to the deal, which was not great, mainly because we overpaid. We sold the 52 mantle at the show on Sunday. Sold it for $13,000 cash, which at the time was a very strong price. I know that seems crazy low for today, but in 2017, PSA 2s were selling for around $13,000. So to get that for a BVG 2 was a very strong price, and again, for cash, so no seller fees. We did a few thousand more in sales at the show. We ended up sending in about 400 cards to PSA. Other than the booth sales, sold almost the entire collection on eBay. It produced over 1,000 eBay listings for me. The highest single sale was the 1957 Mantle BVG 8, which we sold for $4,000. Most of the other bigger sales were lots. For example, a group of 133 1953 Topps mid-grade commons, all PSA for $3,000. That's about half the set. A couple other sales that I was able to find: a 1956 Whitey Ford and a PSA 8 for $450. A Rod Carew rookie BVG 6.5 for $400. And there were actually a bunch of cards in this sort of price range. So let's take a look at the final numbers. We spent $60,000 on Anthony's booth. We also spent close to another $15,000 at the show on other purchases. Our travel expenses included 2 round-trip flights, a hotel for 4 nights, tickets to the show, a rental car, some shipping costs to get the cards back to LA, and some other small stuff. $2,332. We had close to $1,000 in bank fees, and we spent a little over $4,000 with PSA. Total costs about $81,800. For the money in, all numbers you see here are after fees are accounted for and rounded to the nearest hundred. We sold $15,200 at the show. Remember, $13,000 of that was the 52 mantle, but we actually weren't focused on selling much at the show. More interested in getting through the cards, deciding what to send to PSA, etc. Month 1, $16,300, really strong start. Month 2, $10,900. Months 3 through 7 were all around $7,000 each. That's sort of a weird pattern. Usually you would see more of a bell curve shape, but for whatever reason, it worked out that way. Month 8, $3,100, and it's about here where we broke even. Breaking even at the 8-month mark is really not a good result at all. Close to $10,000 more came in after that in months 9 through 12 for a total money in of $90,200. That's a total profit of $8,400, barely 10% return, which, like I said, not a good result. I don't know how many hours it took me to sell this, but I'll estimate 6 weeks of full-time work. And if you break it down for Jeremy and I individually, I made $4,200 for 6 weeks of work, and Jeremy made $4,200 on an investment of $82,000, basically 5% return. Normally on a collection like this, I and Jeremy would each keep a few cards for our personal collection, but it actually became pretty clear fairly early on that the return on this deal wasn't going to be very good. So we actually both decided against it. We may have kept a card or two, but nothing major. So that's the story of buying out a booth at the National. Obviously not a great deal from a business standpoint, but we didn't lose money and had a total blast doing it. And now I have this story to tell for the rest of my life. So I think neither Jeremy nor I have any regrets about this deal. Looking back on it, if we were in the exact same situation now, I think we would have simply passed at the $60,000. I mean, remember, our calculated max was $50,000, and we really should have just held the line there. That would have ultimately led to no deal, but that really would have been the smart business move. I know it seems like the difference between $50,000 and $60,000 might not seem that big, but in this case, it would have been huge. I mean, our profit would have been $18,000 instead of $8,000, more than double, and that really would have been the difference between this being sort of a bad deal versus this have been, like, say, an okay deal. But that's it for now. Thank you everyone for watching. I think I'm going to do a video with Jeremy at some point where we just sort of chat with each other live about some of the stories I've told on the channel. Jeremy and I are still good friends. We haven't done a deal in a long time because I I live in Europe. But yeah, you know, it might be fun to just sort of reminisce and catch up a bit and let everyone you know, get to meet Jeremy as well. But I've included his email in the description below. Feel free to reach out to either me or him anytime if you have, you know, a collection you're looking to sell yourself. But until next time, have a great day, and you know, thanks for watching. See you again real soon. Thanks, guys.